of the last board hearing, which would be from September 10th, 2012. Everybody should have had a chance to review that. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Any comments, inputs, changes? Hearing none, do I have a vote to approve? That vote is unanimous. Okay. We have 2 public hearings this evening, but before that, are there any unscheduled public appearances? Would anybody like to make a statement before the public hearings begin? You'll all have an opportunity to speak on behalf of those applications when those come up. Okay, seeing none, we'll get right into the public hearings. The first is for Mercedes-Benz of Littleton General Plan Development Plan Amendments for 8070 and 8072 South Broadway, case number APD 12-001. Ernie Rose will be presenting that.
Good evening, board members. I'd like to start by submitting a list of exhibits. The list of exhibits are as follows. Exhibit A, City Staff Report and Applications, or Attachments, excuse me. Exhibit B, Application and Attachments. Exhibit C, Area Reference Map. Exhibit D, City Zoning Ordinance by Reference. Exhibit E, Official Zoning Maps by Reference. Exhibit F, Proof of Posting. Exhibit G, Proof of Publication. And Exhibit H, Public Hearing Roster. Mercedes-Benz of Littleton requests approval of 2 general plan development plan amendments in order to facilitate the expansion of their sales and display area. The expansion requires the acquisition of the property located south of Mercedes at 8072 South Broadway, which is currently a car wash. 2 PD plan amendments are required because there are 2 properties and each property is governed by a different PD plan. The car wash property is governed by the Broadway County Line Commercial Center PD plan. This PD plan encompasses the area south of Mercedes to County Line, from Broadway to the Oak Ridge Shopping Center. This PD plan originally prohibited automobile sales at retail. This is the 6th amendment to this PD plan. The prior amendments were approved, allowing the development of an existing car dealership and additional display areas. Mercedes-Benz, located at 8070 or South Broadway, is in the the European Motor Car of Littleton PD plan or Mercedes-Benz PD plan. It included 3 planning areas, areas A, B, and C. Actually, this map is a little backwards. There you go. Those are the 3 planning areas in European Motor Car PD plan. The permitted land uses and standards for Parcel A were specifically formed to allow for the construction of the Mercedes-Benz dealership. The proposed PD plan only affects Parcel A. If the PD plan amendments are approved, the car wash property will be removed from the car wash PD plan and the area incorporated into the Mercedes-Benz plan, thereby expanding Parcel A, as shown on your map here. Consequently, the development standards and permitted uses established by the car wash PD plan will be replaced by Parcel A's development standards and permitted uses, including automobile sales and display. The PD plan amendments also propose modifications to minimum building setbacks and standards from the south property line and the front property line. The south setback will be changed from 20 feet to 0 feet because the remaining car wash bay is attached to the adjacent building located at 8080 South Broadway. The final planning process is site development review, which will be at the end of this process. During that process, it's an administrative process that ensures all the development standards are met. The Planning Board's purview over this case is found in Section 10.2.23, and it states that the Planning Board shall base its recommendation to Council on conformance with subsections A and B. Here are a few notes or comments from staff's analysis. Expansion of the Mercedes dealership meets the goal of creating an employment center and will not negatively impact the neighborhood or the parks. It is consistent with development patterns on South Broadway. There's other car dealerships in this immediate area, and there are a lot of automotive type uses there. The amendments will further relate the design of the development to the particular characteristics of Mercedes-Benz property. The required infrastructure is in place, and the site is supported by adequate utilities and transportation network. The proposed PD amendments are justified in that they are consistent with the goals and policies of the comp plan and the required amendment criteria in the zoning ordinance. Staff recommends approval of the Second Amendment to the European Motor Car of Littleton and the Sixth Amendment to the Broadway County Line Commercial Center General PD Plan. With that, I'll take any questions you may have.
Does anyone have any questions for Mr. Rose?
I have one. Fisher and Associates on the last page of our handout talks about reducing the existing 60-foot building setback requirement from South Broadway. Which building are they speaking of?
That's the existing dealership on Parcel A at 8070.
The Mercedes-Benz dealership
Exactly.
is already there?
Yes.
Okay. Why are they wanting to reduce it? They intend to expand it to the...
No, in its current location, it doesn't meet the 60-foot setback, and so we're reducing it to 55 to bring it into compliance.
Okay.
And kind of follow up to that one, if that's okay. Is it the existing Mercedes building that doesn't comply with the 60-foot, or is it the building to the south?
Mercedes, the dealership.
Okay. So once we've adjusted for that, it's 55-foot setback all along Broadway.
Correct.
Okay. Then the follow-up question to that is, they're also seeking to reduce the 20-foot building setback along the south side of the property to 0 feet, based on the fact that there's an existing structure built right up against the adjacent structure.
Correct.
Once we approve this application, does that then apply, does that make a 0 setback all the way along that south property line, not just at the existing conjoined buildings?
Just on this property.
Right,
In
but
this area.
all along the property line for this property, not just at where the existing building is.
Correct. It would be
Okay.
applied to the entire property.
So if they ever wanted to come through and expand and build right up against the north property line of the adjacent property,
No,
With-
just the south. Oh, you mean the people?
of the adjacent property.
You're right.
They could do that.
Right.
I think I had one more. No, that was it, Ernie. Thank you.
Any other questions? Andrew, did you have some?
The applicant does have a short presentation.
Okay. Can you come up to the microphone and introduce yourself and give us your presentation?
Hi, I'm Terry Minnick, General Manager and the dealer Mercedes-Benz of Littleton. I'd like to address, although it may not be the appropriate time, the ability for the building to the south of me, or the business to the south of me, to build the building forward toward Broadway. There is an easement that goes through on the west side of the building that connects Virginia's Market and the Pride Auto Care facility that may prohibit building the building farther to the west, if you would. If I may, I'd like to clarify that because I would see that it not be just important to the city, but important to me as well. Did I understand your question?
No, I was really talking about the shared property line between the south property line of this site and the north property line of the auto care place
Right.
to the south. With approval of a zero setback, that means either property owner could build right on the property line.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. But moving to the west, which would be the only advantageous thing that they could do, would require changing the easement, and the easement is a fairly restrictive easement at this point. It was contention in the negotiation to buy the property and put it under contract, and I can't imagine my allowing that. If someone wanted to build a building, I wouldn't agree to it should they request it. So if that matters for these purposes, I'd like to at least make it a matter of record.
Okay. Is there an easement on the east as well?
Yes, there is. The easement is a what should I call that, Barbara? It's an access easement that allows them for supplies to be delivered. They pick up waste oil and things like that from Pride Auto Care. So, and they would be the neighbor, and we have a good relationship with them as well as the new owners of Jenny's Market. The only thing I'd like to say tonight, I know you have a busy night tonight, is this request is based on necessity. It's not based on something I would just like to do. It is what I need to do to be competitive. As you know, Lisa Schomp built out on C470, and I'm under a great deal of pressure from the manufacturer to increase my footprint, more importantly to me than some of their, we'll call them requests, would be what my customers want. And my customers want more access. When we get the feedback from our customers on what they like, they want the feeling that it's safe, lighted properly, and that there's a selection. And although I may have a selection of $16 million plus in inventory at any given time, the perception is not there because I don't have the frontage and it's not contiguous with my showroom property. It's always been a problem for us, and it's been a long process for me to get changed. It's incredibly important for me within the next 5 to 10 years to be able to expand this footprint and be able to legitimize the actual address itself as a viable franchise location for Mercedes-Benz. It's crucial. If I don't, if I'm not successful in this venture, although I couldn't do it immediately, I would have to do something similar to what Lisa Schomp has done and others the like. So we don't want to move. We're committed. Our cost basis is very attractive to us at this point, and we want to maintain that. With your help, and I certainly would like to thank your help and your attention to this issue tonight, as well as the people in the city who have been not just good, they're great. They're great people. They're very professional. And what's great for me is that they do understand the needs of the business in their local community and our commitment to expanding. I currently have 85 employees, and I will certainly expand from there if this project is approved. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Terry. So this is a public hearing. I think Terry was the only one who actually signed up on the to speak list, but is there anybody that has would like to get up and speak either for or against this application? Seeing none, I will entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So move.
Second?
Second.
Okay. All in favor of that? Oh, I turned that on. Okay, that's unanimous. So do I have a motion on the application?
Mr. Chairman, I move that Planning Board Resolution Number 12-04 for Mercedes-Benz of Littleton, 8070 and 8072 South Broadway be approved.
Do we have a second? Second, Kurt. Thank you. Discussion. Questions?
I have a question for Terry. You said you're looking to expand. Does that mean that even though right now the added property is a parking lot or a show area, you're looking to make the building bigger in time? The showroom?
The expansion for the proposed property just makes it viable for us to meet the current numbers that we need to reach, and space is certainly a limitation. We would like to expand from this point forward. Sometime in the near future, I'll have to move. I have another franchise called Sprinter. It's made by Mercedes-Benz. It's a commercial truck line. I'll move out of this location. I don't know where I'm going to move it. That's 1 to 2 years down the road. But, you know, if I'm any good at all, I'll negotiate to move to the corner all the way to Jenny's Market and be adjacent to Courtesy Ford. That's obviously strategic for me because of the location of C470. There's a lot of branding that goes with that. That would take time, but that would be my intention, yes.
Thank you.
I have a question. Did you, just out of curiosity, did you attempt to buy further to the south, and that is all you could get, or what? Oh.
This is a public hearing, correct? Yeah, I did.
I don't remember. Thank you.
Yeah, I did. I wasn't successful. It was sold to, we'll call it a gas stations group called Jenny Market. They're Jenny's Market. They're not a small organization, but you know, with the traffic patterns, the way things I see is changing, and the information I'm getting, obviously, the Planning Commission would be a great help to me in that. But I don't think that they'll stay in that location for more than 10 years. I think they'll have to move. The access is not all that great for them. And from what I understand, their numbers don't match what other locations that are located that close to the highway on a main thoroughfare like Broadway should do. So that's my hope. I have a good relationship with the new owners. They're nice people. They've been very agreeable to signage requests and different things that I want to do to the property. But it is a public hearing, and now it's certainly public. That's my intent.
Okay, so this is an amendment to a zone district, and I know there's a site development plan that you'll still need to go through, but I wonder, and this may be a question for you, Terry, or for Ernie, is would that frontage be then landscaped as it is in front of your existing dealership? Is that the idea, is to extend that to the south?
Are you familiar with it?
Yes.
It's meant to look the way the showroom is. I don't think it's good for my brand for it to be different. I don't think it's good for it to look like a used car lot. As we know, some of them can look up and down the street. I know my neighbors in the car business have done a good job of landscaping, and they've been what I would think is very respectful of the community, and I intend to do the same. I'm a Mercedes-Benz franchise. We're held to a different standard, whether we like it or not. But I do intend to make it look as though it does today, and I take great pride in that. Secondly, if I could address it, the setback is, I've forgotten how many feet, Barbara, but I need to move it forward because of the easement that's granted to Pride Auto Care and to Jenny's Market. It's 1 for safety and 2 for the length of display. If I'm going to park a car in the front on the Broadway property, I need to make sure that cars crossing through won't clip them. And secondly, it would match my existing 55-foot on the showroom property. And that was the major reason for it, to make it look as though it's exactly what the showroom property is. One of the challenges I've had for many years is that the service department itself has never been regarded or seldom regarded as the same business as the sales department. So it's been challenging, and I want to make sure that I'm thoughtful when I do that. So,
Thank you. Are there any other comments or questions?
I'm just going to add a follow-up to what Terry said in response to my question about the south property line and his comment about the easements. Prompted by your response, I looked at the drawing again, and in very faint print, running perpendicular to the rest of the copy, those easements are noted on both the east and the west side, so they are a part of the plan submitted.
mm-hmm. They're not. They didn't certainly increase the value of the property for me. It was just a necessity. I had to agree to it. I didn't want to. But and we have to have lanes anyway. You have to be able to drive through and move cars around and have people walk and be safe. But yeah, that definitely was a challenge for me as well.
Okay. Well, thank you.
Craig, I have a question. So I'd like to get some clarification on the 0 versus the 20. So Ernie or Terry, can you show me on the map what would change and how that would apply to the full property line as opposed to just the building structure?
Could you say that again?
The what is currently at 20 feet?
It's the south property line's at 20.
Can you show me on the map?
Do we need the big plan, or do you need just that?
This one's fine.
So the south property line is down to this end,
Right.
and that's where the 0 setback is, in that area.
And so, David, what you were saying is it would apply to that full parcel that it can go up to that 0.
Right. As a practical aspect, there's a 0 setback now where the existing building is. What I was concerned about was then, with this approval, somebody would be able to build right on the property line. What Terry pointed out is there are limitations on doing that to the west side toward Broadway and to the east side as well in terms of existing easements that would prevent anybody from building on top.
So it'll essentially stay within the existing structure as opposed to the full property line. Okay. Thank you.
Okay. There is a motion and a second on the table. Should we take a vote? Okay. All in favor? Vote. That would be unanimous. That motion is approved. Thank you very much. Okay, so the next public hearing would be the residences at Nevada Place, Phase 2, rezone from R5 to PDR at 5591 South Nevada Street, case number PDP 12-001. Jan Dickinson will present that.
Craig, I'm going to recuse myself. I'm a property owner near the property.
Okay, Randy. And Andrew, would you come up and take Commissioner Duzen's place?
Yo-yo up and down there.
Want me to start? Good evening, Planning Board. First of all, I'd like to enter in the list of exhibits for the record. Exhibit A, the city staff report and attachments. Exhibit B, the application and attachments. Exhibit C, the area reference map. Exhibit D, the city comp plan and downtown neighborhood plan by reference. Exhibit E, the city zoning ordinance by reference. Exhibit F, the official zoning maps by reference. Exhibit G, proof of posting. Exhibit H, proof of publication. Exhibit I, the public hearing roster. And Exhibit J, petition submitted by the adjacent property owners. The request before you tonight is to rezone 5591 South Nevada Street, which is shown in the crosshatched area here on this map, from R5 with the PD overlay to PDR, Planned Development Residential, in order to increase, this would allow them to increase the density to allow development of 72 multiple-family residential units on the property. Currently, there's a PD overlay approved for the property for 37 units. This is the property here on Nevada Street. The property to the north is zoned R5, multifamily residential. Land use is primarily single-family residential. On the east side is the other portion of their project that's multifamily residential, and that's zoned R5 with a PD overlay. To the south of the property is it's zoned central area, multiple use, and it has a mixture of commercial and residential uses here. And on the west side of the property is zoned R5, multifamily residential, with a mix of single-family residential and some multifamily units. The property was formerly the site of St. Mary's Elementary School, and it's comprised of two parcels, this parcel on the east side and the parcel tonight that we're looking at on the west side. In 2006, St. Mary's sold the property and relocated its elementary school to its church campus on Prince Street. In 2007, the developer obtained approval of a plan development overlay on both sides, on both parcels, to build the multifamily development. They're three-story buildings, and Phase 1, which is this side here that was built, has 31 units. Phase 2, which is the side that we're looking at tonight, was approved for 37 units with underground parking for 77 stalls in the Phase 2 building. Tonight, they're, of course, requesting a rezone to increase the density. However, the project will retain the same height of 43 feet, the same massing, scale, and footprint, and also the same design guidelines that were obtained in the original PD overlay approval in 2007. The only change they're asking for is to increase the density by allowing 72 one-bedroom units versus 37 two-bedroom units. And the parking structure, of course, will still accommodate 77 cars that they had received approval before. That access is adjacent to the alley that along the west property line, which then comes out onto Powers Avenue. The PD overlay that was approved in 2001 established a parking standard of 1.95 spaces per unit, which is more than the code requirement for multifamily of 1.5 parking spaces per unit. This PD plan is actually proposing a smaller standard of 1.07 spaces per unit, and the applicant had provided in their materials some justification regarding that lower parking ratio, and given the fact that it's near a rapid light rail transit. In 2007, the traffic analysis that was done for this Phase 2 building estimated 155 trips per day for 37 units. The applicant provided a new traffic study with this proposal, which accounted for smaller sized units and the proximity to downtown and the light rail station. They also did some physical observation of the actual traffic coming and going from their Phase 1 building that was completed. And all those, I believe the study indicated a fairly low peak hour trip generation that occurred in the morning and in the evenings, and it was actually lower than the earlier traffic study in 2007. So, while the overall average traffic increases, daily traffic increases, the peak hours for this proposal, according to the study, is less than the earlier one. Also, the traffic study concluded that no improvements were necessary for the nearby streets and intersections as they've been built to accommodate higher volumes. In 2000, let's see, there's a house that's 5590 right here that actually backs up to the alley, and it's right across from where the parking garage and entrance and exit will be for this building. Back in 2007, the applicant and developer and owner at the time, who is still the same person, had agreed and committed to that property owner to build a screen wall with landscaping to screen the headlights that would come out of the garage and shine into his backyard. The applicant still plans to, he's still committed to making that improvement to mitigate that for the neighbor as well. However, I did point out that the PD plan does not have this actually specified on the plan. And while the staff is supportive of the mitigation, we felt that the PD plan was not the appropriate document to include such an improvement because the neighbor's property is not actually located in the property to be rezoned and be on the PD plan, and private improvements off-site can't really be included in the PD plan. So I've noted it's a commitment that the developer has made, and it will be applied as such. Let's see, in order to approve the rezoning, the planning board must base its recommendation, and city council must base its decision on the conformance of the proposed rezoning with the pertinent goals and policies of comp plan. And staff finds that the proposal is consistent with these pertinent goals and policy statements of comp plan and the downtown neighborhood plan, in that the comp plan promotes housing within a quarter-mile radius of light rail stations. Also, the site is in the residential mixed-use district identified in the downtown neighborhood plan. The proposed development will meet the overall goal of the downtown neighborhood plan in that it will add diversity to the residential housing mix downtown, thereby contributing to a vibrant Main Street and creating a healthy and stable business environment. In addition, the proposed development will comply with the following policies and implementation strategies that apply to this area, which I've stated. LU4 is the residential mixed-use district, should have both residential and commercial uses while maintaining a diverse residential character. The proposed residential development will provide a balance of commercial and residential uses in the area. LU6, the downtown should support a diverse mix of housing options for residents of all ages, incomes, abilities, and family structures. The proposal will provide housing for younger population who desire smaller housing units and closer proximity to transit. Amenities will include patios, street trees, landscaping, and pedestrian lighting. LU9 states that the height of future buildings in downtown should respect its historic scale and character. The height of this proposed structure is consistent with the existing building in Phase 1 of the development and complies with the desired character of the mixed-use district. Since the proposed rezoning is in a planned development district, the Planning Board and City Council must also find that the proposed plan complies with the stated intent of the PD district. The proposed development does meet all the applicable intent statements by converting underutilized property, which was a former school playground that is presently served by public and private services, into a higher density housing development near transit and mixed uses. The proposed residential development complies with the goals and policies of the city's comp plan and the recently adopted downtown neighborhood plan, in that it will be instrumental in creating diversity among downtown residents and promoting a vibrant downtown. Lowering the height of the north end of the building, creating one driveway entrance from the alley, and providing a screen wall on property adjacent to the garage entrance will minimize impacts on adjacent properties. The redevelopment of the infill site will utilize existing public street system, access points, and utilities. The developer will also upgrade the existing drainage on site to comply with current city requirements for drainage and water quality enhancement. And for these reasons, staff recommends approval.
Are you ready for questions?
Questions?
Do we have any questions for Jan?
I do. On page 3, so it states that the 72 units will generate 288 trips, but yet it says it is less impacting during peak hours than the estimate. So can you just help me understand that a little bit better? It looks like it's almost doubling.
Yeah, well, the traffic analysis from 2007 indicated that during the morning peak hour there would be 10 entering and 43 exiting. And this one for this development is a smaller amount. And from what I understand, the traffic engineer that did this analysis for this time considered the fact that residents would be taking the light rail rather than driving their cars in and out of the garage, and also observed that with the building that they've already built. And I believe the 2007 analysis, it was just a flat, from what I understand, it was just a flat calculation of any type of 3-story condo or apartment building that, would be built somewhere that would be totally reliant on vehicle transportation versus light rail.
And so just to make sure I understand the math more than anything else, so when you say 4 entering and 18 exiting, so let's say during morning 8 to 10 or 7 to 9, whatever it might be, there's 4 cars entering the facility and 18 exiting, so 18 out of potentially 77 is what they're predicting would happen? Is that how
That's what I understand. And their traffic engineer is also here tonight, so it might be best to ask him some of those questions, too.
Other questions, Mark?
Couple of simple ones. Did the city conform with all necessary postings and notifications?
Yes.
Okay. And secondly, there are 2 signs out there, one on Powers and one on Nevada Place.
Yes. Both public street frontages.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I have a question about the difference between the R5 PDO, which was the zoning for the first phase, and the PDR, which would be the second phase zoning. Is that the PDO was required as part of the transit impact zone, the TIZ, I believe, correctly?
It was, yeah, it was, well, the PDO was 2 things. First of all, they were required to do it back then because of the TIZ. And second of all, they were also asking for modifications from the R5 zone district, like an increase in building height and modifications on their building setbacks. Okay. So that generated also the reason for the PD overlay. So it covered 2 areas there.
So then this request is not for a modification to the R5 district, but for a different type of zoning?
Right. The R5 district has roughly a maximum zoning allowance of like 43 units to the acre. They're asking for about 72 units per the acre, which is the same as what the CA district allows. When they asked about doing the rezoning, I'd recommended they go with we talked about that and recommended the PDR over just rezoning to CA, because the CA also allows other commercial uses that weren't appropriate to encroach into the neighborhood. So,
and sort of a follow-up question on that. Was a city council approval not required for the PDO?
Correct.
Okay.
And since they're going through full-blown rezoning with the PDR, it does go on to city council.
Okay.
For this one.
Is there another question over?
I do have one question. Jan, in your analysis on page 5 under the LU6, your note is that proposal will provide housing for a younger population. Are you making the assumption that older people would not live in these 1-unit apartments?
Well, I think the applicant can address that better. They've actually done their market studies and their demographics, and that's what we were understanding, that this would be appealing to a younger professional that's not ready for the big house yet.
This is your analysis or your...
This is from reviewing their materials, yes.
Materials.
Any other questions for Jen before we go to the applicant?
Couple.
Kurt? Okay, go ahead.
Shanna, if you could just go over this one more time. I know it's in here in various places, but as far as the density, dwelling units per acre, CA zone is up to 100?
It's actually, I think it's 75 units per acre. It's 75 units per acre, I believe, just as a CA.
Straight zoning, right.
Now, a CA, the zoning code allows in the CA district to go up to 100 units per acre with the PD overlay.
Okay.
Yeah.
The R5 zoning, which is where this property sits, was what you said, 43, 45?
I think it's about 43 or 45 units per acre.
43.5.
43.
43.5, thank you. And the existing PDO for the original proposal, the original development?
It was within that 43,
Was it about?
yeah.
Okay.
Might have been a little bit under that, but.
And then the height limitations in CA zone is 30 feet, R5 is 30 feet, but with the existing PDO in place that encompasses this property, they were allowed to go up to the 43 feet. Okay.
Any others, Dave?
No, I'm just going to verify a couple of things. If I'm hearing this correctly, they're not changing the number of parking spaces?
Correct.
So there will be no more cars introduced or parked on this site than were under the original PDO?
Correct.
Then you just get into a judgment call as to determining whether the residents of these one-bedroom units are more likely to use light rail and therefore generate fewer traffic or visits or trips per day.
Right.
Okay. I note that the north end of the building is stepped down from 3 stories to 2 stories. Okay. No such step down to the west side toward the properties across the alley, though?
I don't believe so, yeah.
Actually, this question is really more for Kirsten. I know I understand Jan's comment and staff's belief that we can't require as part of the PDO or recognize as part of the PDO the developer's intent to provide screening for the property owner at 5590. But could we not include in this approval a requirement that they do something to screen that out? We don't have to specify whether it's on the site, off the site. And I guess what prompts me to that question was, how do we end up resolving the question of lighting, sidewalks, curb, and that sort of thing of Family Dental a year ago? Because we faced pretty much the same situation. It really wasn't part of the request of the application for the PDO, and yet I presume Charlie Boston didn't give up on that. So is there not a mechanism for effecting this?
I don't think there is when it comes to Planning Commission, but there can be some sort of a separate agreement between Nevada Place and the third party. Do you have any additional comments on that?
I think what we struggled with is because the zoning actually doesn't go beyond the property line, and you understand that, we can't require it off-site. Now, I don't know the specifics of the dental, but if it was right-of-way, then we do have some control. So maybe that's the difference. That's where we just got a little uncomfortable of requiring what seems like a good solution, and I think both parties have agreed, but to include it in this zoning where this zoning doesn't go beyond this property line, we're struggling with that.
Okay, so if we wanted to do anything like that, mandate control of fugitive light into adjacent properties, that sort of thing, we'd have to work that into the motion to accept the to approve the application, without necessarily specifying whether it be on this property or some other method. You know, maybe he's going to stand out there and remind everybody coming up the ramp to turn off their headlights or something. I don't know. But we could do something like that.
Yeah. I don't know, Jan, technically we have a right-of-way adjacent to the west side of the project, and
Valley.
potentially the fence could fall within that right-of-way? No.
It's only 12 feet wide.
Okay, well, something we may have to discuss during question and answer period.
Was there another question down here, Mark?
One more follow-up on the heights. Under the existing PD and the proposed revised PD, allows for 43-foot height limit. You said that the R5 height limit is 30 feet. That's rather, well, let's put it this way. What is the actual height allowed in the R5 area? The 30-foot height limit is measured to the midpoint of the roof, correct?
Correct.
So theoretically, any kind of structure built in the R5 surrounding area could be built up to 40, 42 feet high to the top of the peak of the roof, correct?
Probably so, given the pitch of the roof. So,
Yes, they could.
Yeah.
Steeper the roof. And you could build within that roof a third story. Yes, you can.
Yeah. You're the architect.
Okay.
So but, I mean, yeah, it's not a high ceiling.
So
It's
30
yeah.
foot is not to the top of the roof in the R5.
No,
it's
it's to
the
the
average height of the roof.
Midpoint.
Thank you.
A couple more.
Sure, go ahead.
Jan, under the referral agency comments, notice we got no comments from Littleton Fire and Rescue. Did they provide any comments either upon PDO approval and subsequent plan development?
They did actually. They did submit comments. It's all kind of the building plan requirement when it comes in. It's listed right here. They did. They commented that building plans need to be submitted to them, fire protection system plans and current water plans, and that's their standard comments.
They commented that they have to see the plans for comment, but what I'm asking is, they haven't submitted comments with this proposal. Did they submit comments during the process of building out Phase 1?
Oh, yes. They reviewed the
roughly
building
comparable?
plans and the water system, and they signed off on the CO. Yeah, the fire department gets involved in the building plan review.
So we're safe in assuming that any comments or comments they made or revisions they requested or from the Phase 1 plan are incorporated in this one?
Yes, but they did actually submit to me a new memorandum for this review, and I summarized their comments here in that chart on page 4, which is basically related to the next stages, which is the building plan review.
And under the city's comp plan and downtown neighborhood plan, you cited LU4, 6, and 9. I notice LU3 isn't in there at all, which really talks about protecting the character of the R5 zone, the R5 neighborhood next door. Was that?
Oh, okay. Didn't include that because that goal specifies the old downtown neighborhood, and this is actually in the mixed-use district. So.
Which, 20 feet away, right? Okay. I guess the follow-up to that is in LU9, talking about the height of future buildings. The comment from staff is the height of the proposed structure is consistent with the existing building in Phase 1 and with the desired character. Okay, I got you. Mixed-use district, again, not the R5 neighborhood. That's it.
Okay. There's no other questions for Jan. Do we have a presentation from the
Yes.
applicant?
Good evening, board members. Happy to be here.
Thanks. You'll have to step up to the mic as soon as Glenn is down there, so we get it on the record.
Some sort of impediment there?
Okay. Could you just introduce yourself and...
Thank you. Good evening, board members. My name is Jonathan Miller. I should say planning board members. I'm happy to be here. It's been an interesting 5 years, to say the least. So I thought I would take a moment and reintroduce myself to the group. My company is Camelback Development. We are the owners of the property. We were the original development team for the existing building that sits on the east side of the street. And I have been in the land development and home building business for the last 20-plus some odd years. My true roots started in the custom environment and custom home construction environment, and over the years, the construction has taken me in many, many different directions, and which includes both single and multifamily housing. But my focus has always been in quality construction, and I would like to think that I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, we just wanted to get it. We have a screen down here, and we can't. It's not projecting on there right now, but see if we can get that going. I don't want to interrupt your presentation, so you can go ahead and continue.
No, that's quite all right. I'm not used to making public presentations, so feel free to interrupt.
Can't hear in the back. Could you speak into the microphone, please?
I will try. Thank you.
Thanks.
Anyway, I'm here tonight to talk about a little bit about the project that we propose on 5591 South Nevada. And again, just to reiterate, my company has been in the land development and home building business for 20-some-odd years, and our expertise is in quality construction in both single-family and multifamily homes with very, very deep roots in custom construction. The last project that we worked on that was somewhat similar to, or not similar, but of this statue was also another school site, and that was the Washington Park Elementary, which was the redo of a 1928 school building in Washington Park. And that project was redeveloped into condominiums, townhomes, and single-family homes. And they've included a few pictures up here for you so that you can see some of the construction that I've been involved in. Thank you. Okay, great. So we started this project in 2007, And the project was originally designed to be a single-phase construction. So when I came before you in 2007, it was for the construction of 68 residential units on the old St. Mary's Academy site. And as it turns out, there were a lot of things that happened after that, and we had a very, very trying time economically in the real estate market with banking industry and what have you. So my decision back in 2009 when the project was commenced was to put the entire project on hold or to break it into 2 phases, which is what we did. And we were fortunate in convincing our banks and backers at that time to allow the first building to go forward, and we got the 31 units at 5592 up and constructed. And we tried for quite a while to sell those units. We had a sales office for well over a year at the corner of Nevada and Maine, and we had a very public appearance. We worked with the community, with the merchants, and with many of the neighbors and the homeowners to reach our market as intended for the sale of those units back then. And unfortunately, that was not to be the case. Things were crumbling around us as far as mortgage markets and value of real estate and what have you. So the goal at that point became to stabilize the building and to make sure that it didn't fall into disarray or disrepair or become a foreclosure property or anything of that nature. And actually, that worked very well. We were successful. The building was stabilized. It was temporarily and is temporarily converted into a luxury rental units. They were originally condominium units were designed. I think our smallest units were over 1,300 feet or right around that. Our largest units were over 1,800 feet. We've had a great deal of luck keeping them leased. As a matter of fact, we've had almost 100% occupancy for the entire time since the building has been stabilized. We pretty much rent up the units almost as quickly as they become available. We've had 1 or 2 vacancies this year, but it looks like we're returning to full occupancy again right now as I'm here. We just leased a couple of units that came turnover. So we did divide the project into 2 phases, and, you know, basically I'm here before you this evening. You know, they say that necessity is the mother of invention, so our interest is in finishing what we started and seeing the rest of the project through. And so I think we've lived through the worst of it, and we're starting to see a resurgence in the marketplace, and we're not quite there yet. Banks and lending institutions are still very tentative, particularly where construction of condominium units goes. But the first step was to try and find our correct market, and we've had some experience. So these last few years has given us quite a bit of experience related to what the highest and best use for the property is. So with that said, we'd like to talk to you about the second phase of the building today. And what we're asking for is we don't want to change much about the building. We don't want to change the height, the size, the mass, the setbacks, any of the volume associated with the business. But for 2 years now, we've had calls that were somewhat driven where we are today, which is what we'd like to do is we'd like to reposition the building for what we know from our experience to be the current market. And that is that we're here to request 1 bedrooms as opposed to the 2-bedroom units that we have now. The units that we're proposing. No, that's okay. I think you're good. The units that we're proposing are we're not trying to compete with the entry-level markets. We're not trying to compete with affordable housing. The units that we're proposing are still luxury units in nature. Our intent is to still build these units as condominium units. We intend on mapping the building just as we've mapped the first building. And what we'd like to do is meet the demand that we've had in the marketplace, which is for 1-bedroom units. We currently have all 2-bedroom units on the other side of the street. And we're getting about between 6 and 7 calls out of 10 are for 1-bedroom units. So that's what we're here to propose this evening, is we're here to propose the change in the zoning from the 37 units to the 72 units. What makes us very unique is that the staff, the consultants that I'm working with, the architects, which you'll meet tonight, and some of the other folks that are here to support us, have worked diligently to stay within the confines that we started with. We're not adding floors to the building. We're not changing the setback or the mass or the size of the building. We simply want to meet the current market demand, which in our opinion is been spoken in volumes over the last couple of years. So that's what we're here to do, is to change the zoning to 72 units. Everything else but the density of the building will remain the same. I think you can move on to this side. So our experience, again, just to try and follow up with what we've started here, is that when we brought the building to the marketplace in 2009 and 2010, we did try and sell the units in that market, but the market wasn't having it at that particular time. So, no, that's okay. We're still after a strong luxury market here. We haven't changed our philosophy. We're still interested in finishing beautifully appointed luxury units. These units are not tiny little small units. Even the one-bedrooms themselves exceed probably what some might be considered the average. The units will be between 750 and 800 square feet. We expect that these units will lease for probably between $1,500 and $2,000 per unit. So we're trying to continue along with what we started with the first building, which is beautifully appointed luxury residential units here in the downtown Littleton area. We've had good luck with the first building remaining 100% occupancy, which has given me the ability and the luxury to come here and talk to you about the second building. As far as our renters go and why we've had inquiries for one-bedroom units, we're dealing with a lot of young urban professionals that like the downtown area. They like the walkability, the access to restaurants, to shops, and the many amenities that downtown Littleton offers. And we're just constantly pressed for one-bedroom units, which we don't offer. And we feel that they'll better serve the marketplace, being that we already have 37 two-bedrooms on the other side of the street. So the idea is to balance the project out and bring it together as one large, cohesive, unit or project or so forth. So I think that the market is getting back to where we need it to be. I believe that our intention is to meet the comp plan and to conform with the downtown neighborhood plan. I'm following along with the Celine too. We believe that we've identified the highest and best use for the property, and that we like the fact that it's a TOD site and that it's close to transportation. Many of the tenants that are in the building now do use the light rail. They do commute to work. An interesting fact about the building, I think we're going to spend with some time this evening with our consultants talking about traffic and parking and this thing of the nature. We had a meeting to prepare ourselves for this presentation tonight, just to talk about some of the finer points, and we wanted to look around the building so I could show it to some of the consultants. When we went through the building tonight at 6:30 this evening, half of my garage, I didn't count it space for space, but is empty. We've never fully utilized the parking that we have now. So we have a good group of people in the building. The building has remained 100% occupied. I believe that the parking that we're suggesting will meet the comp plan and the other requirements of the downtown Littleton area and the TOD designation. And we're here to ask for your support tonight, and I want to introduce you to the rest of my consultants and my staff. You can tell that public speaking is not my forte, but I'm happy to answer any questions that I can. And we've stayed with it. It's been a tough couple of years for anybody in the land development and home building business. Our first and primary goal was to get the building stabilized and to make sure that we kept it going, kept it in good state of repair. So we've done just that. The building receives regular maintenance, and it's not a profitable endeavor at this point, but it's a stabilized asset of my company, and our goal is to finish what we started, and that's why we're here tonight. So with that, I'd like to introduce you to my architect, Elizabeth Johnson, and I'm sure as the evening goes on, I will be called upon to answer any questions, and I'm happy to do so.
Thank you, Jonathan.
Hi, I'm Elizabeth Johnson with EJ Architecture. I'm going to run you just through a few slides. A lot of it will be reiterating what Jonathan and Jan have already told you. First slide here is just our project site. We're at the northwest corner of Powers and Nevada, directly across from Phase 1. So obviously the project is right across the street. We want to make sure we complement the architecture and the community. So the next slide. This is outlining just the adjacent zonings. We have obviously R5, multifamily residential, the CA mixed use, which, do allow for, higher density multifamily residential. Again, we're right across from the R5 with the PDO, and we are asking for an increase only in the density from 37 units to 72 units. And the architecture. I want to talk just a little bit about the architecture. We're right across from Phase 1, and the whole idea here is to complement this existing building. So again, no changes to the setback, no changes to the building footprint, no changes to the proposed roof line or building height of the already approved 43 feet. We really want to capture what's already been built and complement what's already there. So the building materials and the palette, we would propose to be very similar to the Phase 1 across the street. The massing, the articulation, again, we wanted to complement. The tower elements, some of the articulation is very similar to what's there. We do step the building down on the north side just to sort of decrease the mass a little bit, but also, it provides sort of a screening element from the neighbors to the north, which is why, it was an important element to the project, and it complements the Phase 1 piece, which looks really nice. In terms of, conformance with the comp plan, we are, obviously we're going to meet energy and environmental codes and concerns. We're going to provide code compliant and fully accessible sidewalks, connections, city housing codes, mechanical systems, the new energy codes. Everything's going to be code compliant in that regard. Water efficient landscaping, drought tolerant plants, Energy Star rated appliances, lighting packages that are very energy efficient and respectful of the surrounding community. So in terms of the comp plan, obviously we'd meet or exceed those requirements and again, complement the building that's already there. So, just want to stress we're not changing, no proposed changes to the footprint, no proposed changes to the setback height. We are looking for just density only, going from 2 bedrooms to the smaller 1 bedrooms that Jonathan spoke about. This takes me, I believe, to my last slide, which I think it's a pretty, powerful statement. On my left here, we have the approved site plan, and right next to it is what we are proposing. You can see no change at all to the footprint, no change to the landscaping. Obviously the height and architectural elements aren't shown here, but the only thing we're looking for is the increase in density here. So I think that's a pretty powerful image, just kind of shows we're staying with what's already approved, and we're just looking for a density increase. With that, I'll turn it over to Ryan. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you.
Good evening. I'm Ryan Littleton with Caliber Engineering, the civil engineer. Just wanted to go over briefly our site and utility concept and reiterate that since the footprint's not changing, the site plan's not changing, and so everything that was designed and approved back in 2007 with the original single-phase design would still be valid. Just to orient you on this site plan, the north is to the left, and so our Phase 2 that we're discussing tonight is on the bottom of the page. We have received confirmation from the City Utilities Division that the existing sanitary sewer infrastructure has adequate capacity to serve the proposed rezoning without any improvements. So we're talking about one single sewer stub into the alley, into the existing main in the alley. With the first phase of construction, the water services for Phase 2 building were also constructed, as well as an additional fire hydrant, which better serves both Phase 1 and Phase 2. Additionally, with the Phase 1 construction, storm sewer was constructed along both sides of Nevada Street. The primary purpose of that storm sewer was to drain the PLDs, the porous landscape detentions or rain gardens, which are water quality features for both the Phase 1 and Phase 2 site. But we additionally constructed a street inlet, a curb inlet, that alleviated some street capacity issues that the city was experiencing in the area. So our water quality features, again, are going to be the rain gardens, which are landscaped areas where all of the roof and impervious surface will be hard piped to, and that runoff would be allowed to infiltrate and filter out the pollutants before it's released into the storm sewer. So the Phase 2 development will enhance the quality of stormwater runoff from as compared to the old school blacktop, and that the rain gardens are integral part in stormwater management for these high-density urban areas.
Where are those located, Ryan?
They are the little pods right out in front of the units, separated by the steps.
On the street side, not
on the street side. That's right. So they're landscaped with drought-resistant plants, and they also are effective as far as removing pollutants. Okay. With that, we'll turn it over to our traffic consultant.
Good evening. My name is John Aldridge, and I'm a traffic engineer, principal of Aldridge Transportation Consultants. I'd like to present to you tonight some facts and figures on trip generation, operations analysis. I don't want to get too deep into all the numbers, but anyway, I'm going to show you on this slide
John, can
a trip generation comparison.
Get a little closer to the microphone. Thank you.
What I'm showing you here is actually the worst case, because I'm just going to use numbers strictly from our books regarding the trip generation for average daily traffic, which is ADT, and the AM and PM peak hours, and I'm showing here the amount of traffic that goes in and the amount of traffic that comes out. For the current zoning, you can see that we would probably generate around 217 daily trips, with only 3 in and 14 out in the morning, 13 in and 6 out in the afternoon. Or that's the peak hour of traffic for design purposes, which we call the design hour volume. Under the proposed zoning, it would go up to 422. And with the in only about 5 out, 28, 25 in, 12 out in the afternoon. The difference in the trip generation there is shown on the bottom, which is 206 ADT, 3 in, 13 out in the morning, 12 in, 6 out in the morning. So there's very little difference. When we're talking about single-digit numbers, we're not talking a very high impact, believe me. This slide shows the level of service at Nevada and Powers. As you can see in the slide, the existing PM peak hour, there's very little traffic that goes through this intersection, and it is rated at level of service A, which means there's no stacking, there's no queuing, there's no delay at the intersection to move through it. You just stop at the stop sign, it's a four-way stop, and then you're able to move right directly through it. With the 37 units, we would still get a level of service A, a slight increase in traffic. With 72 units, there's, again, we get level of service A. There's absolutely no delay or problems with the impact of the 72 units versus the 37. There's really no discernible difference in say. But again, this is a worst case. Now, we're in a TOD situation where people are not going to drive to the light rail station. They're going to walk. They're going to walk to all the restaurants and shops that are downtown. So this is going to create a reduction in the overall traffic. And you can also take a reduction because there's one-bedroom units. In other words, there's no teenage drivers or something like that in there. So you don't have multiple cars typically for one-bedroom units. The difference, or the reduction is it's difficult to determine because of the context of the TOD and the distance from the light rail stations, et cetera. Our studies show that there's at least about a 5% and up to about 25% reduction in overall traffic. I'm doing a big study right now for the City of Westminster on their TOD, and right now we're just using a very conservative 10% reduction in there. So that's, again, the traffic is not going to create a problem. There's going to be a reduced traffic because of the TOD, and from our operations analysis, there's not going to be any discernible impact. So if you have any questions, I'd be happy.
Yeah, just a quick question, John. Clarification. All your slides show condominium. Is there a difference between apartment and condominium in the formulas that you might use?
Yeah, there is a slight difference between condominium and apartments. Apartments generally generate a little bit more traffic than do condominiums. Mm-hmm. The exact number is like 5.86 for a condominium and 6.65 for an apartment on a daily basis.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Question?
The city's write-up that we've got for this project talks about in 2007, 37 units would generate 155 trips per day. The next page, page 3, the traffic study estimates that 72 units will generate 288 trips per day. I don't see those numbers on your sheet.
What I presented.
Okay. I saw something 450 or something even more. I see no jiving of the numbers in the staff write-up and what you're presenting tonight.
Yeah, there is a difference because what I'm showing you here is a worst case, and I wanted to put that into an operations analysis to demonstrate that whatever the numbers are, you're going to still achieve a level of service A at the intersection, so there's no discernible impact. In fact, what we did, just to point out, we counted, there's an existing 31 units in phase 1, and we counted the in and out traffic of that garage there. We only got 2 movements out in the PM peak hour and only 4 in. So there is quite a reduction in the traffic from what we would calculate for the 31 units. It doesn't really bear out. I mean, it's quite a bit less. So that's the purpose of just having, a worst case to show you that whatever the traffic is, you're still going to have a level of service A and virtually no impact.
Do you know where the city got their numbers? I mean, they got to get them from somebody, I assume from you.
2007 study. Yeah, I didn't see that. In the traffic study that you have where it's 288, I did take a reduction for the TOD. In other words, I did calculate an estimated number, a reduction in the traffic because of the TOD and the ability to be able to walk and not use the vehicle.
A considerable reduction. You went from over 400 to 288.
There will be a reduction, as I pointed out, with the existing units, is quite a reduction from what we would have calculated.
The other question I had for you is the 288 trips are generated by the people living there. Is there any consideration given to people coming there to visit Bronco games, turkey dinner? Where do they park?
The trip generation does include service vehicles, post office, or deliveries and things like that.
Minor.
Visitors, no. There may be some increase because of visitors, yes, but not on a daily basis.
Is it ever? In any traffic study, is it ever considered who's coming to visit?
Well, again, the typical delivery, trash pickup, and
I'm not speaking of those. Those are minor.
For visitors, no.
No.
Well, we have a number of people signed up to speak, and we have a public hearing after this, so I'd like to keep it moving. Do we have any questions for the applicant? Maybe we can get Jonathan. Oh, was there one more? I'm sorry. Okay, sure, go ahead. Sorry. Okay.
We're going to save the Q&A for the end. Sorry about that.
Oh, okay.
I'm Jessica Elizabeth, and I'm just going to go quickly through the justification. I'm not sure if you all go by commissioners or board members. Board members, okay.
It's a new thing.
Yeah, I'm used to the commissioner days, so. Oh. All right. Just quickly to go over the community outreach that we provided for this project. We held a community meeting. We sent out first of all, I'm sure you're aware there's no required mailing notice for that at all. We certainly wanted to do that. In addition, we sent out a second notice for that same meeting. We sent out a total of 366 households, and we had only 18 attendees at the meeting. The majority of those attendees were highly supportive. There were a few folks that I wasn't able to talk to, so I certainly won't characterize everyone, but I did have good follow-up with several of those who attended. In addition, we've had ongoing outreach to the neighbors on an individual basis, certainly with our adjacent landowners, almost all of them. And out of that outreach, less than 10, by the way, on the mailings that were sent out, there was contact information for the developer that included a number that unfortunately I answer almost 24 hours a day. And it also included an email contact and a mailing address for those folks who prefer to still communicate that way. And I received a total of less than 10 total inquiries at all, and that includes all communication methods total. And only one of those expressed any form of concern about the project, and it was based on a mistaken belief that they thought it was qualified to be a warehouse for some reason. So you've heard why it is that we believe the rezone's justified, and again, if you want me to stop, I'm happy to. I just want to help you get through your time, okay? So I'm going to talk to you really quickly about TOD. And I don't know if you had the opportunity to read our justification or not. It's 24 single-spaced pages of really thoroughly researched best practices, studies, and that's a broad range of compilation, and it includes nothing that I would classify as being outside of the norm. As a matter of fact, we tried to err on the side of being conservative. Almost all of that will agree that these are the 5 hallmarks of successful TOD. I'm sure that you all, as planning board commissioners, are very familiar with TOD in your TOD area. So you're familiar with the walkability radius. The site meets that. It's within less than 0.5 miles. The connectivity is already there, and that's hard to get, and it's at no cost to the city for the infrastructure for that. It's all existing. What's missing is the increased density, the mixed land uses, and the reduction in parking standards that makes TOD work. For the increased density, clearly, as Jan pointed out, it's a key component in downtown success, but maybe of interest to you is there are only 1,240 total residents within that walkability radius, and that's a generous count, 1,240. So the businesses have to rely on customers that drive there, which clearly causes a parking problem. So a lack of density contributes to downtown's parking issues. It doesn't make them worse. And to that end, there are a number of cities, and I listed them all and won't go through reiterating that for you, but they're documented practices of cities that actually implement density minimums in TOD sites, not maximums. The mix, which is also highly justified by the comp plan and the necessity for mix, and there are internal reports from BIAC and others that have suggested the same thing for Littleton, it recognizes there's a lack of housing mix downtown. And there's a lack of housing mix that's desirable to in-migration. And I believe, Board Member Metcalf, you had asked a question about about is this just appealing to younger professionals? And it's not. There are two forms of in-migration. You all know your demographics. You know it's aging. You know that your population center is not coming from within Littleton. It's coming from other areas. Again, the information that I provided you bears out that those are two centers. One are young professionals, and the second are empty nesters and recently retireds. And they're all looking for small, quality housing product in close proximity to TOD, which is lacking. You can see the numbers, 30 homes. And this took a long survey of going through county records. There are less than 31 bedroom residences within all of your residences in the area. And of those, there's virtually no new housing stock that would appeal to that in-migration demographic that we're talking about. Successful mixes from about 30 to 50% in a TOD, just to give you an idea. And again, it's all documented. So what happens is those looking to live in TOD who are attracted by the charm and the amazing amenities that downtown Littleton has to offer and that you've worked so hard to offer, move on to other communities. So this provides a solution to that mix. Parking reduction standards have been identified by transit authorities across the United States, besides funding as the single largest hurdle to TOD. And unfortunately, parking based on suburban models goes largely unused. And I was fortunate enough that some nice people at the University of Colorado did a study. And that study, which again is more detailed in the document that I provided you, looked at City Center and it looked at Omni. And what you find is that Omni, these were based on physical counts. And Omni is 30%, unused parking exceeds the demand by 30%, and the parking supply exceeds the demand by 45% at City Center, which is in pretty close proximity to you. And it does not account for bedrooms. And the mix of those bedrooms are 1.5 at Omni if you take into account the 2 bedrooms and 3 bedrooms. And at City Center, they're at 1.4. So what you end up with, you can see the required zoning ratio, the actual observed demand. When you apply the bedroom model to that, the parking demand ratio, the actual ratio that one would anticipate, and it's pretty well documented for this particular site, is at that 0.87 and 0.84 for those 2 sites. And I think we could all agree that they're probably or likely busier in some cases than what we're talking about. The traffic counts are certainly higher. So at the 1.07 parking ratio that we're providing, and I'm not the tech person, so I'll leave that for those better qualified. But at that figure, we are certainly exceeding actual observed usage right here, less than 2 miles up the road from you, and certainly best practices across the country for TOD. I would also be happy to answer any questions that you have with regard to conformance with the comp plan and each individual line We detailed that out as well, but there are 19 distinct goals and policies of the comp plan that we meet, and there are 18 distinct goals and policies of the downtown area plan. And, you know, that 20 feet does make a difference, because 20 feet more and we wouldn't be here. So we appreciate it. And I think with that, we're ready to wrap up, and we appreciate your time.
Okay, well, thank you. We have some questions for the applicant. I know I do, but I'll let others.
I do have questions.
Go ahead, Jen.
Okay. I'd like to ask first about that you do have an elevator in this building, and
Yes, we
so
do.
that means that you've got the units available are accessible.
Yes, they are. As a matter of fact, we had to meet all of the standards and requirements for accessibility when the building was constructed. Egress and ingress is considered right at the point of the original application. We have a handicap ramp out in front of the building, as well as on a point system, we have accessibility in units also.
Great, because that's one of the demographics that we see rising in the city of Littleton. Is the older adult population, and having that opportunity to downsize, that the parking being structured, that it's whether it doesn't matter, it's going in and out. So
the garage is ventilated, it's heated. The ramp going into the garage has got a snow melt system on it, as well as the front entry to the building. So the building's really quite efficient. It's a nice structure, and the garage complies, as well as the unit count and the entrance and other points of access into the building with current accessibility standards. And of course, when we get to construction drawings and those type of approvals on the next building, we'll also need to comply with whatever the current standard is.
And then I also had a question on this being a TOD, there's a lot of emphasis on this site. Do you provide bicycle parking?
We do. We have bicycle racks that have been built and permanently attached, and they're distributed throughout the garage.
Okay, they're in the garage. Okay, I was looking
Yes.
for notes of where the bicycle parking was located. And I didn't see many, I didn't actually
We
see notes on the
fabricated them at
garage, so.
yeah, we fabricated them out of heavy tube steel, and they're in both of the stairways at the bottom of the staircases, and then they're on the exterior of the staircases inside the garage at both ends and in the middle. So there's actually quite a bit of bicycle parking.
Okay, great. I appreciate.
Sure. Okay.
Phase one, you're 100% leased to two-bedroom units, correct? Plus or minus people moving in and out.
Yes.
Okay, but basically you're 100% leased.
I think we might have one or two vacancies at the moment.
In your justification, last page, you talk without a change to the mix, to the unit mix, the project is entitled as unresponsive to demand and not financially sustainable. You're 100% leased. If you build the same units across the street, what's to keep you from not being 100% leased as you already are on phase one?
Because our units were built as luxury condominiums, and because our intent is to ultimately sell them as luxury condominiums, both in this building and the next building, we're getting by. We're making our mortgage payment, but that's just about it. The building was built as luxury condominium units, not necessarily as rental units, and it wasn't our intent to do so. So where the median rental rates are concerned, we're well below the median rental rates because the median size of a rental unit is under 1,000 feet citywide. Our medians are 1,500. So we will never realize market rents, or I guess what you would call fair market rents with these large units. So what it's caused us to do is it's caused us to lower our rental rate quite a bit. So the units across the street, being smaller units, will actually probably rent for somewhere between 60 and 75% more than the units we have now if we rent them. And of course our intent is to build luxury condominiums.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Questions?
What kind of population do you expect to occupy the one-bedroom units, and how does that differ from the population that occupies the Phase 1 folks?
You know, we'll have some similarities from what we see in the two-bedroom units and the one-bedroom units. Interestingly enough, our median age over there is a little bit younger than I might have originally anticipated with the larger units, but I believe that the people that are most interested in the one-bedroom units are, you know, young urban professionals that are, you know, working in and around the area. Some are commuting with the transit and others are not, but I believe that we'll see some similarities, but I think we'll see possibly more single professionals as opposed to either married couples. We don't really have any roommate situations in the building now. We have you know, we have couples that maybe take a two-bedroom unit because that's all we have available, and you know, maybe they need a guest room or they need another suite. In many cases, though, because those units are 1,500 plus square feet and because the rents are what they are, we oftentimes don't find our young professionals or median-age professionals. We don't find singles moving into our building. So right now we have a greater mix of couples, and I think I may have mentioned earlier, we get a lot of calls for one-bedroom units. So we have a website. It's called visitnevadaplace.com that has a fair amount of information on our floor plans and things, and we just still get a lot of calls for one-bedrooms.
To rent or to purchase as a condominium?
Well, right now our calls are for rental because we've converted the website and all the information that's available in the marketplace to be for rent. We can't go back into the for sale market until we reach a point in the marketplace where the values that condominiums sell for equal or exceed the value of what it costs to build the building. So right now we're still, you know, we're still trying to get back to market pricing. So
this is probably more of an industry question, but what is the turnover of a one-bedroom apartment in this area? I can't say I'm that kind
you know, I'm sorry, I don't think I can provide that information for you. Turnover of one bedrooms relative to turnover of two bedrooms?
Meaning, is there going to be a stable, where I'm leading to is there will there be a stable population that lives in this facility, or can we expect high turnover? And my implication there is that the renters may not take as good a care of these apartments as owners or long-term lessees would.
It's a good question. We're not competing for the entry-level or affordable housing market here. We're competing for a luxury market, just as we are on the other side. So our retention has been very, very good. Our retention has been over 60% of the building, so we have 31 units over there now, and we still have about 60% of our original tenants. So we haven't turned over the whole building. We certainly have turned over units, but and to me it feels like a lot because, you know, even a third of the building is 10 plus units, but and that would be on an annual basis. But we have a pretty good retention. We haven't. We still have some of our original tenants in the building, quite a few actually.
And as you were doing your financial models and certainly building designs, did you look at some sort of mix between one and two bedroom facilities, or did you pretty much make an all or nothing call, or how did that process go?
We did look at that, but our demand is so great for one bedrooms, and because we already have 37, actually 35 two bedrooms, we have two. You asked about accessibility earlier, and two of the 31 units on the other side of the street are accessible, and they're one bedroom units, and they meet the accessibility requirements. So out of the 31 units that are on the east side of the street, 29 of those are two bedrooms and 2 are one bedrooms, and neither of those 2 one bedrooms has ever been vacant. But we made the decision to go with one bedroom because of the size, being able to offer a very comfortable, luxurious one bedroom unit, and because of our demand for one bedroom units.
And last question: how was you planned to, or you wound up with a phase development? What was positioned to the phase one tenants at the time? At that time, I guess 2009. And what was the communication like between you and the tenants in the development of phase two, or in the proposal of phase two? Probably better said.
I'm not sure I completely understand the question.
Did you tell the people who are presently in there, and then what are we changing in the perception of what I assume to be some of the people sitting here?
Sure. Most of the folks who have asked about the second building asked so because of the view that many of them have from the west side of the building, of the east building, and because of construction itself. So some are interested in the one-bedroom units, others prefer two-bedroom, but most of my communication from my existing tenants is just what's happening, when is it happening, and, their concern is construction and views.
Thank you.
Okay. Question, Karina?
I do. I have a couple of questions. One, going back to traffic. So I'm just going off of what was presented by the city staff. Again, here it says 288 trips, but then the estimation during peak hours goes down. So if I add this math correctly, between 4 entering, 18 exiting in the morning, 17 entering, 10 exiting, so there's a total of 49 trips accounted for during what is called peak hours. But then there's another 240 trips throughout the day. Is that how I should interpret that information?
We may have to ask the traffic consultant. I can answer it in some general terms, but I probably can't answer it as well as the consultant. My general impression is that the traffic coming from and going from the building is fairly modest. I think that on the particular day that he might have chose randomly to do his visual, the traffic from the building was very low that particular day. It's a pretty relaxed atmosphere over there. We've never had the garage at capacity on the parking we provide now. There's 74 spaces in the existing building. We've never had that parking at capacity in the 2 years that the building's been up and running. We may see a closer capacity in the new building based on, 72 one-bedroom dwelling units, and there could probably be a cooperative effort between the two buildings because it's my intention that they stay under common ownership. That's my plan. So would you like this gentleman to answer your?
I'm sorry, you'll have to forgive me. I'm a little hard of hearing, so I'm not sure of the question.
So I was just trying to reconcile the total of what was here as 288 trips versus 49 happening during peak hours. So there's 240 trips that happen, I guess, throughout the day or evening. Is that how I should interpret that?
Yeah, 240, or whatever the number is.
So again, I think the statement is during peak hours, perhaps it's reduced compared to what was originally presented, but there is an overall increase in traffic in the area throughout the day, would be the way I'm interpreting this information.
There's going to be an overall increase, but it's fairly minimal.
Okay.
Right.
Okay. And then the second question or comment I have on traffic is, so while I understand the need for, and especially for a transit district, the need for minimum parking requirements and which we don't have right now, I don't think, versus the maximum, it's almost like a self-fulfilled prophecy, right? But where, as opposed to looking at trips, and I think you just answered this for me as well, there's still a need for parking. So when we increase the density, so regardless of how many trips they're making, there are still going to be individuals that own cars that need parking. So if they're not able to park in the garage, they're parking in the surrounding area. So I do have a concern about that.
I think, the studies I've seen, particularly on parking, the ITE, which is the Institute of Transportation Engineers, parking generation manual speaks very specifically to the type of the context. And in this context, we have an urban situation where people can walk, and there's really no need for a second vehicle or a third vehicle like there is in a suburban area. And so they have calculated, based on a number of different observations, the parking requirements per bedroom, which conforms precisely with what Jessica was showing you at about 0.84, 0.85 in that area. For this type of use in this context, that's, the parking is considerably reduced from what would be required in the suburban area.
Okay, thank you. I also have an architectural question. So I understand that the average height of the original PDO was 43 was the average height that was granted around the original PDO, and the maximum height at any given point, is it 55 feet at the current Phase 1? Whatever it may be.
Elizabeth, the architect that's here this evening that's been working on the property was not the architect on the original phase.
Okay.
I don't believe that there's a 55-foot height on the building. I can't tell you that with perfect clarity tonight because I haven't measured it recently, but I don't believe there's
Let me just then ask it another way.
Sure.
The maximum height at the Phase 1 building, is it going to be the same maximum height that we'll see in the Phase 2 building?
Yes, it will be.
Okay.
Right.
And then one final question. This is now the engineer. So regarding waste management or utilities, so with 77 units, instead of one big, whatever, trash can or whatever they're called, would there be 2 or 3, or how is that being addressed?
We have a separate trash room now that's under its own electric garage door opener. The entire building itself is secured. It has secured entrances all the way around the building, including the garage itself. People get obviously an opener or what have you to get in the garage. But the trash room is secured between the room and the building itself. So the trash company, Waste Management, currently has access to that room. And that was a learning experience for us when we first built the building. We had one large dumpster in there, and we were doing one pickup a week. We now have a separate canister for recycling and a separate canister for trash. Through trial and error, we increase the size of both, and we do multiple pickups per week. So we also have a chute on every floor that feeds right into the bin. So we've, through trial and error, and almost 2 years now, we figured out the trash. It took us a little while.
And so it's out of sight?
It is. It's out of sight behind a door, and it's contained within the building itself.
Okay.
And so, the building that's there provides a pretty good model for what we're doing. The building that we propose to build is going to be substantially the same as the building that's already approved on the site. Most of what I'm interested in accomplishing here is to meet the long-term trends and the market requirements for the size of our units. It's not going to look any different from the outside than what's approved or pretty much what's across the street.
Okay. And I have one final question for city staff, just more from a process perspective. So if this is going for rezoning and to a PDR, essentially what's subject to review or consideration all over again is height, setbacks, all of that now becomes open for discussion once again, right? Okay. Thank you.
Okay. I think I'm going to reserve my questions for later because I want to get to the public hearing, but if there's any burning questions from Board Member Metcalf or Kurt, do you have some questions for the applicant?
I just had a couple of quick questions for Mr. Miller, if I could. You intend, or you would expect that you would convert this back to a condominium project under one HOA in the future?
Yes.
Is that the idea? Okay.
Yes.
And then as you have them now with the other parking, would you consider, or have you thought about leasing out parking spaces in Building 1, 2 people in Building 2 if there was additional?
Oh, sure. That would be great. I'm sure that it would be easy to establish a cooperative effort between the folks in the 2 buildings. So.
And one other quick question. You have a long history of building single-family residential projects in the city. Have you done any other condominium projects in the city, and how is that, or do you have any other any of the plans right now?
I haven't built any other condominium projects in Littleton. Our project at Myrtle Hill was a multifamily mixed-use project. We built a 40-unit just north of the stadium called Frontview 40. That was another condominium building we built. We also built a unit at Spear Boulevard and Zunai next to the Marriott's there, and then we also built a 30-some-odd unit over at 18th and Race. So my construction over the couple of decades has taken me into quite a few different product types.
Thank you.
Thank you. Dave, do you have a quick one or two?
No, I think we can wait and get to the rest of the public hearing and then go get into it in discussion.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Okay, sorry to keep you all waiting. This is a public hearing, and we do have 5 people that have signed up. You're all welcome to speak. I have 2 that have indicated interest in coming up and speaking. Janet Buntrock, and you are not in favor of the project.
I'm not in favor of the project with 72 units or 77 units. I live at 5511 South Nevada. We're 22-year residents of downtown Littleton, have been very pro-development in downtown Littleton. We were members of the Second Century Fund, helped with the redesign of our downtown Littleton as it is now. However, as it's been briefly mentioned throughout the evening, the big issue is not traffic, the big issue is parking. Currently, with the residents as it is now, 6 to 8 cars park every evening on the street, more in the summer. My husband and I often walk downtown in the evening, walk down to the river, and there's always 6 to 8 cars, more in the summer. If you live in the area or you decide to go eat at a restaurant in downtown Littleton on Friday or Saturday night, you know that Powers, Nevada, Berry, Prentice, all of those are parking lots. If we want to go out on Saturday evening, we have to take the car that's parked in the driveway because the parking space in front of my house will be gone when we return. Parking has been not addressed by the City Council for several years now. Can't be decided here, but it's really the biggest issue. There's no place to park in downtown Littleton. I know the parking studies may have been done on a light traffic day, but I do know that on a busy day like Thanksgiving, Mother's Day, Father's Day, any of those days where the residents might have company, the street is full. And what's going to happen when you add all that many more units? Downtown Littleton can't support the parking for the businesses and residents that it has. This is not a well-advised project to put this many residences. It is an apartment building, folks. A high-end, very nicely built, very well-maintained, beautiful piece of architecture, but it's an apartment building. It's highly unlikely that each of those units are only going to come with 1 car. We have to be realistic. I want to be able to park in my neighborhood. There's children in my neighborhood. I want to know they're safe. The parking's a big issue.
Okay, thank you. We also have James Winfield. Also not in favor of the project.
I'll be brief. I'm James Winfield. I live at 5521 South Nevada, just the property north of the project. And I think as I indicated on the sign-up sheet, and I've been in discussions with Jessica and John, and when, the first time that Jessica came around the kind of the block to tell us about the community meeting, et cetera. And I think for whatever reason, and I don't know if this is just what I heard, my understanding was that although the new building was going to have an increased number of one-bedroom apartments, it wasn't clear to me that it was going to be solely one-bedroom apartments. And that increase in density does concern me for several reasons. And I think the biggest one that Janet just shared is certainly the parking and the increased traffic potential. I'm not a traffic engineer, and I haven't done all the studies that Camelback has done, and I appreciate the work that they have done, and I hope that it is accurate. But to me, it's hard to fathom that a complex with 72 units would only have 77 car spaces. For me, it's hard to imagine that 77 car spaces would be adequate. And as the neighbor directly to the north, I mean, in purchasing, we've lived in the home for 3 years now, and purchased it knowing that this development was going to be built to on the south end side of our property, and we certainly had concerns. Namely, that increase in density or living next to a multifamily unit, I'm not exactly sure what that does to my property values. My inclination is that an increase in density probably maybe decreases the value of my property, just because the value of a home or a property is dependent on what someone will pay for it, and to me the desirability of my property decreases with such an increase in density just right on my back door, as it were. So those are my concerns. Again, I think I've learned a lot this evening regarding the studies that they have done, and I hope that they're accurate. In the 3 years that we've lived here in Littleton, I've commuted by bike, I've commuted by light rail, and by car, just as my employment situation has changed, and I enjoy the ability to use that public transportation, and I'm a big supporter of it, and I hope that I think it'd be fantastic if there was a building with 77 or 72 units that all those individuals biked and light railed and all those kinds of things. But I don't know how reasonable that is, especially when these are units that individuals have to be making a decent amount of money to be able to afford even the rent. That I can't imagine that they wouldn't have a vehicle or two as well. So thanks for your time this evening.
Okay, thank you, James. Do we have anybody? I know some other people have signed up, but they didn't indicate whether they want to speak or not, so I won't put you on the spot, but you're welcome to come up. If you just state your name and address and whether you're for or against the project, that'd be great.
Autumn Gold, 5540 South Curtis Street.
Can you step?
Sorry. So I worked with you guys on the comp plan, and I think you remember me at some of the public hearings and work sessions. And I'm the one that said you can only put so many fish in a fishbowl, and we're already at our max with parking. And I know you remember the intent of the comp plan was to keep the intent single-family residential housing, and bringing in 70 individuals is not that intent that we talked about, that I remember, you guys remember. And so it's very frustrating to work 12 hours and come home and not be able to park in front of your house, or to leave on the weekend and not know that. And I've met some of these neighbors because they park in front of my house. So they're good neighbors. I just don't think it's a good idea, and I don't want this to happen to my neighborhood.
Okay, thank you, Adam. Is there anybody else that would like to speak for or against, sir? You state your name and address and whether you're for or against.
Good evening, member of the board. My name is Randy Stein. I live at 5590 South Curtis Street. It's on the northeast corner of Curtis and Powers, and my property is immediately adjacent to the west of this property. I'd like to start off with a full disclosure that I am the person who's represented on the page 3 of the planning office's recommendation with regard to the screen wall, and I'd like to just get that out of the way and dispense with that sort of formality and self-serving, if you will. In brief, to answer some of the questions that were earlier asked, there is a rather lengthy and specific document that is a contract that exists between myself and the applicant. It is conditional upon fulfillment of a sound and light mitigation plan, plans of which were provided, and I'm happy to provide them again to staff if they don't have them anymore, including a wall and some green space, basically, prior to the occupancy of the project. And that was a document, as I said, that exists and was referenced in the development plan as being a condition of occupancy. The applicant has not provided any of those and has said that at some date, perhaps in the future, he might. But if that were not to be made a note on the PD this time, although one wonders why it wasn't enforced the last time around, I believe I would have no recourse against the applicant. And again, some of those are on the right-of-way. I believe the staff might be able to see their way through to enforcing them. But as I said, enough of the self-serving stuff. I'm a developer as well. I developed 8 buildings, or redeveloped them, on Main Street between Curtis and Nevada in the mid-'90s, and as such I purchased quite a bit of properties in order to provide parking for my sites, for my commercial sites, which were until recently Opus, the Austin Houck men's clothing store, property that was resold to the tavern after my involvement, and then 4 more buildings across the street. I would note that on the second page of the of staff's recommendation, it does reference both single-family and multifamily residential as being west of the property. In fact, of all of the residences to the west of the property, there is 1 multifamily site. The rest are single-family. That is a 5-unit apartment project located at 5580 South Curtis. I think it could be fairly characterized as a rather transient location. There's a lot of law enforcement response to that site on many occasions, and they are smaller units. It could be that some of the other residents who signed the petition that you may have reviewed prior to the meeting are concerned about that. In fact, the residents of that project were not surveyed with the petition due to the high turnover rate. I think, in fact, however, that the applicant has indicated that he seeks a much higher income by virtue of the rents that apparently he will be seeking in the $1,500 to $2,000 range. And I believe that should be a young professional that may have a car, a nice car, or maybe a young couple with 2 cars. And it seems to me that I would struggle to recognize that what could be 2 cars per unit up to 144 or more cars could be adequately parked in the existing contemplated structure. The staff's analysis is that, and ma'am, you referenced this earlier, that for example, in one traffic study, that they were talking about 4 entering and 8 exiting. That would be in the morning, I assume, and therefore 17 and 10. That would be, as I understand this, less than 20% of the entire project would be people that would be either leaving for work or returning home from work. And the demographic that I believe I understand that's contemplated in this, I find it hard to believe that less than 20% of those people will be taking light rail, if in fact light rail does serve where they will be going. There, at least at this moment, is no access to the Denver Tech Center, a major center of commerce. As I said, as a developer, I've sat through a lot of these hearings in the past, so I'll conclude my statements and let you guys get back to it. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, sir. Are there any other folks that would like to speak? Sir? Please state your name and address.
My name is Gary Emmerich. I live at 5520 South Curtis. 5560 is under contract. 5570 is under contract with me. And one other house. Thank you, Randy. That was a very good job. One of the problems I see here is the stats that they're talking about. When they're talking about a resident with a 1-bedroom, doesn't necessarily mean that there's one person that lives in that residence. Most people have a partner, and most partners have 2 cars. So when you're talking about increasing from 36 to 77 parking spots from before, you were having 36 units, you're going to 72 or something like that. You're doubling the amount of people, and also the amount of people that are there that are living in it. So you can't guarantee that there's just one person living in a 1-bedroom apartment, first of all. And we have to look at our stats and say, how many people that live together have cars for each one of them? the parking problems we've had some problems with Merle's for the waiving of their parking, that our street on Curtis has gotten to a point to where, like the lady said, you have to pull out of your driveway and you have to pull in. Now, if you own more than 2 cars, if your wife is out there, she pulls away from the curb, or you got to double park your car in the front. So we've got that situation to look at. The employees, one of the biggest places, and we're not talking about Berry, we're not talking about Powers, because the houses don't sit. They're more of a parking alley. So you don't have people who live on Powers and Berry that much. The residents aren't there. When they talked about 30% of homes that only have 1 bedrooms, well, they're talking about homes. They're not talking about apartments. They're not talking about condominiums. They said homes. So their stats are based on that. The traffic pattern. What happens when you have that many people living in an area and there's only 77 parking spots? Somebody's got to park someplace else, don't they? Where do you think they park? On Curtis, on Nevada, wherever there's a parking spot in front of any house, which the people that we are, that are residents there, it eliminates our parking. We're having added restaurants all of a sudden from the body shop that you're trying to put 4 restaurants in there with no parking. The ability of this for their construction, what they're doing is great. The outside's going to look great. What it creates for the residents of the other streets is a problem because of the parking. The other thing that was said, give me 1 second here. Traffic pattern. It was suggested that, I'm sure the gentleman knows what he's talking about, the traffic pattern. There's only so many people that can come in and come out. Let's take the traffic pattern. The people that parked on the other streets, they're leaving, they're coming, that live there, but they're parked someplace else. But the traffic pattern is only, what he's based on is only what's coming out of that building. It isn't the rest of the area that the traffic pattern is noted. The units themselves, as far as how can we go from 36 with 72 parking spots for 36, double it, the units, not increase the parking facility, and not take into consideration the other people that are living there. Density. They talked about it's the same building, but the density amount is twice the people. 3 times, if you consider partners. The building's going to be the same. That's great. The units aren't going to be the same. The type of people that they want to move in. He talks about the youth. Well, there's some bunch of us old guys running around here too, you know. Youth is one thing. They all don't work downtown, so they can't walk downtown. They have to have transportation. Professionals. I guess I'm a professional. I don't know professional what, but professionals. So they're all going to take the light rail. I don't think that's particularly right. We talked about the new restaurants, some of the things that we give waivers on parking. The employees are probably one of our biggest problems with the residents. Now, I'm trying to just maybe represent Curtis Street. I don't know how Nevada is.
Can we keep it specific to the application itself? Because I don't think the employees of downtown really, I mean, it's an issue.
It's an issue with the parking.
Right.
Because they're 3-hour parking, and they got jobs 4-hour parking. We're looking at the parking problem more than anything. I think that's one of the things that everybody has talked about is our parking problem. So I'm trying to
Sure, I understand.
go with that issue. And I'm not a developer, even though these 3 houses, 4 houses, I'm not a developer. I just like living there. Okay. But I think that's some of the things you got to take in consideration. Some of the facts that were presented are certain facts that don't take in consideration other items, other issues that are in there. So I think that's why we're here. Is 36 units are wonderful. It's nice. The only other thing I might say is there is a problem with the alley, and your parking is going to be from the alley. Those cars are coming in and out of that alley. The people who live in back, which is maybe 40, 30 feet from me, we have a problem getting in and out of the alley because what you've created for us, and incidentally, I think he can tell you this, on Curtis Street, we pay more taxes than any other street because we're part commercial, and we're 30% higher. But now we can't get to the house. So what you're asking us to do when this development goes through, you're asking us to develop our alley, to make our own parking spots, move our buildings, move our fence, put in some driveways so we can have personal parking.
Okay. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
There another speaker? Okay. Would you state your name and address, please?
My name is Mick Noyes, and I live at 5559 South Curtis Street. I just wanted to say that I oppose this project also. I think a lot of this, the PowerPoint presentation and all the statistics are very nice, but I've been on South Curtis Street for 27 years, and there's been a tremendous change, and I can only see it getting worse with a higher density. The statements that the people before me have made, I won't go over, but you need to just come down on Curtis Street and just watch what goes on. When you increase the number of population, you're going to increase that problem. A lot of us have to call police to get people from parking in our driveway, so we can't even get out of our driveway, not even parking on the street. So it is an issue, parking, traffic, the numbers the gentleman was mentioning about in and out, realistically, that doesn't happen. It's way worse than that now. So I can only see it getting worse if this project goes through.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else? Okay. Thank you very much for all the input. Do I have a motion to close the public hearing?
I motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
Second.
All in favor? Okay, the public hearing is closed.
Chair, could we have a slight break before we start our deliberations? Or?
Sure. Is that okay with the other commissioners? Just take a 5-minute break, come back?
Okay. Thank you.
We'll reconvene in 5 minutes. Okay, so the public hearing's been closed. We'll now go to discussion. Do we have a motion?
I move the Planning Commission Resolution Number 12-05 be approved, which will forward a favorable recommendation to City Council.
Thank you. Second, please.
Second.
Okay. Discussion. I guess I will start, and then I'll pass it along to the commissioners. Parking is obviously the issue that's come to the fore here, and my observation is that you have an existing unit that's quite successful in apartments that is parked at almost two spaces per unit, and a proposed that's closer to one. You have 2 bedrooms at the existing one and 1 bedroom at the others. My first inclination would be to ask the developer if there's any flexibility in the proposal for the phase 2 that would change the mix from all 1 bedroom to something that would create a better balance between the first phase and the second phase to balance parking and density concerns. So that would be something that I would be concerned about. I'd be amenable to a discussion of that. We did hear a lot of very good comments that were not in favor of this. I did appreciate the presentation on how you did the community outreach. I was kind of surprised to not see any sort of letters of support or other types of indications that there were support. Okay, can she still submit them, or?
You can put those into the record, but we can't take any further testimony at this point in time.
Okay, so we'll enter those into the record. Thank you. Those are my concerns. Obviously, there's some concerns from the neighbors. It sounds like you did a good job of getting out there, but didn't get to everybody, obviously. And so I would suggest that we look at potential flexibility in the plan itself. Other comments from the commissioners?
I do have a comment. Initially I was surprised that there wasn't a unit mix between 1 and 2 bedrooms. I do admit that I do appreciate having put this binder together. I know that this was a lot of work. And there was a compelling argument here about not having enough 1 bedrooms within the downtown area. And I thought that was interesting to see. So that is something that I am weighing, that I recognize you have 1 building with 2 and you have 1 building with 1. And it does seem like if there's a way to share the parking to make up for the difference between 2 parking spaces per unit in one and one in another, having that opportunity, that flexibility, I think would be helpful to with the parking situation. So that is, and I do want to make just an interesting note. For other zoning that I've worked, other projects, they do have the number of parking spaces based on the number of bedrooms. So what they are proposing, even though I know that's not favorable in the group, in the area, and I know there's concerns, but that it's not uncommon to have 1 bedroom and have 1 parking space, even though that may not be the reality. So that's just something that it's out there, and so I wasn't completely surprised to see that in this plan, especially in a downtown situation.
Okay.
Well, in 2007, I voted enthusiastically for Phase 1, mainly because it stayed within the parameters of the existing R5 area as far as density, unit per acres, lot coverage, heights, reasonable setbacks. It was in keeping with the existing R5 zone. That neighborhood has single-family homes for the most part, but is R5, which allows, 43 and a half units per acre, quite a dense area. But I want to go to more philosophical, talk about zoning. When I buy a home, I rely on zoning to protect my investment, so I don't get a high-rise next to me or a hockey rink next to me. But if I buy a home in, say, this R5 area, it's also my responsibility to know what the zoning is and realize that the single-family homes probably won't be there forever because of the underlying zoning and the density that it allows. But I see Phase 2 as doubling the density and violating the underlying R5 district. To me, they've gone too far. I would have preferred more of a split of 2-bedroom, 1-bedroom, maybe more 2-bedroom, some 1-bedroom. In every municipality that I work in, financial hardship, self-induced, is not a reason for changing zoning. You have to come up with more reasons. So I'm a bit troubled by the proposal.
I want to echo and I want to appreciate that parking is a significant issue in this downtown Diamond District. There has been extensive effort to revitalize downtown over the past, I think safe to say 5 years, and it's certainly taken much longer than that to get it done, with a specific intent to keep going. We would like a more robust district. We would like more density. We would like more revenue flowing into the downtown area. And with that, maybe an assumption or a reality that more density is going to be required. So I think the intent of adding single-family or single-bedroom homes in there is materially compliant with what downtown business district is after, and certainly all of Littleton, in my opinion, should be after. So in the best interest of the community, I think I'm all generally for that. In the interest of being a good neighbor, would like to see additional outreach happen from the building owner to the neighbors and see if we can alleviate some of this. I too was troubled not to see more of a mix. It seems like an all or nothing proposition. We went from it's an assumption and it's allowed to be changed, but we went from the assumption that the Phase 2 would be very similar to the Phase 1 and that the world changed on you, and I can appreciate that 100%. But this may be a different issue, but to go as a 180 difference, I do have a problem with that. The infrastructure to the alley, I think, is a very viable point. I think that's a city issue, and I don't think that that's the burden of the proposed building owner here, or not the proposed, of the building owner here, property owner. And certainly parking is a larger city issue, should not be squarely on the shoulders of the building owner as well. I do believe that to be a larger city issue that we need to get addressed. So as I said, in the interest of being a good neighbor, I'm hoping that the parties can come to agreement on a viable solution. But I think in terms of the letter of what's being proposed, I don't think the parking can be solely attributed to the property owner.
Thank you. Comments down this end? Karina?
What I'd like to get an understanding of, just recognizing the trends and the need for 1-bedrooms and the desirability of 1-bedrooms, I'd like us, and the request goes out to city staff, to take a look at what truly are the 1-bedroom availability in the downtown area. I think the study that you shared with us was within 1/4 mile within the light rail. And in particular, I don't know whether or not that includes.
By the way, did mean not just multifamily. I mean, it did include multifamily.
And specifically, I want to look at the Alexan apartments and whether or not they were included in that analysis for you. Okay. So that would be information that would be valuable to me in helping to just understand the level of demand that is being presented here and whether or not Littleton, and I understand what is defined as walkability, but whether or not Littleton can offer some of that housing option.
We can provide you those numbers right now, if you'd like.
I do have the ones for the Alexan.
Thank you.
And it is I believe that development is like more than half a mile from the station. But they have 172 one-bedrooms and 151 two-bedrooms and 27 three-bedrooms.
Say that again, please.
They have 172 one-bedrooms and 151 two-bedrooms and 27 three-bedrooms.
This is which project, Lexington?
That's the Alexan project.
And that's 1.5 miles from the light rail, and Nevada Place would be about half a mile?
I would just say that Alexan is outside that 1/2 mile from the train station.
It's outside, it's also, there's a lack of connectivity. You have to cross the railroad.
Actually, you can come across down Rio Grande, but...
There's Rio Grande, but yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Dave?
Thank you. Thank you, Jan.
Go ahead, Dave. I know you have something
Dangling
to
here.
say.
I'm going to surprise Kirsten a little bit and not start off on the principles and the touchy-feely aspects of this. The bottom line is we're asked to approve a rezoning that is consistent with Phase 1 in the original PDO in terms of height. What it isn't consistent with is the density. It's not consistent with the original density of that property before the PDO went in. It's not consistent with the density of the property with the PDO. And it's certainly not consistent with and respectful of the R5 neighborhood surrounding the site. I could go on, and I've tagged a dozen pages in the applicant's presentation where they've glossed over a lot of facts and put a glossy, rosy side on every representation. There are lies, damn lies, and statistics referring to situations beyond Littleton, beyond this site, beyond this neighborhood, are not necessarily applicable in this case. If this were nothing more than a proposal to build out within the existing or the previously proposed building envelope, if there were no easily understood concerns about parking problems in the neighborhood, not just confined to this site, but in the neighborhood, it sits in a context, it has to be considered as such, then this would be a slam dunk. It is an excellent project. I, for one, happen to like what I see with the Phase 1. I have no reason to expect that this won't be done at just as high a quality. I'm a little puzzled at the representation that downtown cannot afford or absorb any more two-bedroom apartments. If you're telling me that one bedroom is the future of the downtown area, I'm going to take exception to that. I appreciate both staff and applicant in their detailed reference to the fact that this proposal is consistent with the comprehensive plan, although applicant focused a lot more on the original plan than they did on the thrust and intent and details of the downtown neighborhood plan approved less than a year ago. In looking at that, it is more than numbers. It is more than where a dividing line is for what shows in that plan is the old downtown neighborhood versus the area to the east. In the end, zoning is about protecting a property owner's ability to find a good use for his property, but it's also about protecting surrounding property owners from development that would negatively impact their reasonable expectations and their enjoyment of their property. Whoever said it, I think, was right. Andrew, yeah, the applicant, the property developer, is not solely responsible for solving the city's parking problems. He is responsible for the effects of exacerbating those problems, and that's what zoning is all about. Those are my concerns.
Okay. Well, we have three options on this. I think one is to approve it as proposed and per the motion, to reject it as per the motion and the application, or to approve it with conditions. And the conditions could be to propose a different mix. But I'll go ahead and entertain a motion.
Craig, I think there was a motion to approve and a second, so at least vote on that motion first.
Okay.
Wait a minute. No, we can amend that motion. I think that's what Craig is inviting here.
Amend it also, but you need to vote on that main motion before you make any additional ones.
No, I'm disagreeing with that one. No, flatly.
Yeah, well,
I have never sat on a hearing like this where we have not had the opportunity to propose amendments to a motion to accept as presented.
You can amend the motion, yes.
Okay, I should have clarified that. It's an amendment to the motion. Do I have a proposal to amend the motion? If not, we'll go ahead and vote on the main motion.
My inclination is to propose an amendment referring to the previous and tentative agreement between the developer and the property owner behind the garage driveway regarding sound and light protection. I'm not sure I know how to do it. I'm not sure in the end it's going to matter much. Kirsten doesn't seem to hold out much hope that there's anything we can do that would have any binding effect on that. Correct me if I'm wrong. No. So it's a pretty useless amendment to the motion.
Is somebody putting words in your mouth? What would you say to that?
I was trying to understand the question. I guess we're back to the wall?
Yeah, the condition for the
not necessarily a wall, just some kind of protection, screening from the adjacent property against the noise and the light generated by cars leaving the garage. We've all talked about it. We know a wall, as discussed in the proposal or as discussed previously, between the developer and the adjacent residential property owner is nothing that we can enforce as part of the PDO. My question is there some language I can add as an amendment to the motion saying, making the acceptance or the approval of the motion and the application contingent upon some sort of arrangement being made?
I think if we put a condition that they'll address buffering of that adjacent property and leave it at that, it'd be up to staff to see how that's done. Because potentially the solution could occur on their site. And I think that's what you're saying.
That's the thrust of what I'm trying to get to. I'm just looking for help in trying to devise it so it doesn't commit us to something that we can't enforce and leaves it up to the goodwill of the developer and the property owner to work out a resolution.
Mm-hmm. So give it your best shot.
Oh, you won't. Okay, I'd like to amend the motion that Planning Commission Resolution number 12-05 be approved contingent upon negotiation of a mutually satisfactory, help me here, Kirsten.
Sounds good. I think you're doing well.
Protection of the residential property at 5590 South Curtis Street from noise and light generated by traffic entering and leaving the underground parking garage for the development. It's the best I can do. extemporaneous.
I like it.
Do we have a second on that amendment?
I'll second.
Okay. Any discussion? Okay, let's call for a vote on the amendment. So I'll just repeat it real quickly. The main motion would be approved contingent on negotiation of a mutually satisfactory agreement to screen for 5590 South Curtis Street from noise and light generated by entrance and exit to the parking structure. All in favor? Okay, that's 6 in favor, 1 against. Back to the main motion. That is approved. Any more discussion on the main motion? Any other amendments suggested? Should we call the question?
It's scary.
Okay, with no other discussion, I'd call a question on the main motion. Let's read that back again. The main motion was that the Planning Commission Resolution 12-05 be approved, which will favor favorable recommendation to the City Council on this application as amended. All in favor or against, please vote. The motion fails.
Could you leave the results up a minute?
Oh, sure. Thank you very much. I think that's all we had on the agenda.
Could I ask a procedural question, or long-term procedural question, Glenn, Kirsten? Is it appropriate or inappropriate for us to make any suggestions to the applicant about I think I know the answer to that. We need to let our comments up to now stand on their own, right? Rather than make any suggestions about revision or resubmittal?
You probably get the legal the legal opinion is
That's a good place to start.
But I'm sure staff might have ideas for you that may be workable.
I guess the question is, can he say it now after the public hearing?
No, I don't think it's appropriate now.
That's fine.
Okay. Okay. There are a couple other items on the agenda here. General business. Was there anything else, Glenn, that you wanted to present?
We met on last Saturday. We talked about a study session on November 26th. So I think we're looking at 6 o'clock in the room next door to us, a little bit earlier start, and I think the goal would be we get through the transformative actions and do the mapping exercise that we had scheduled for Saturday.
Okay.
Allowed to make a comment, the board?
Sure.
Folks, I believe in Littleton. I do. I've had good experiences here. My whole proposal is aimed at taking cars off the street, not putting them on the street. You need housing. You got great restaurants. You got great shops. You have any place for them to live. We chose 1 bedrooms because you got 31 bedrooms. You know, we tried to take into consideration all this. What you need is you need residents to support your retail and your restaurants and what have you. We've been at this for a couple of years now, maybe 5 all total. We did consider our proposal very carefully, and I would ask you to consider your housing needs carefully also. Thank you for your time tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I think what our goal will be is to put together a list of what those actions might be and perhaps get them out to you early and have you pick a top 3 or something, so maybe we could go into that meeting with a little bit of idea, certainly realizing that you may add to it or take some away. But that's our goal, to hopefully use 3 hours, whatever, to the best benefit on the 26th. That's all I have.
Okay, anything, other comments, reports from commissioners or board members or staff? Do I have a motion to adjourn?
I move we adjourn.
Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Your turn to,
David, do you have something else to say?
Now that the meeting is adjourned and we're off, yeah, because it's easier to talk.